Kia ora everyone, and welcome to this webinar today on defining energy hardship. It's very nice for you to be joining this webinar with us today. I will start with a short introduction as well as the MBIE karakia. So, and just be aware that we are recording this webinar, although we won't be recording the, sorry, excuse us for the technical difficulties. Anyway, Ella, I'll move to the karakia slide. The MBIE karakia, tawhia tō mana, kia mau, kia maia. Ka huri tako aro, ki te pai kahurangi. Ke reira te oranga moku. Ma mahi tahi, ka ora, ka pōwai. A mātou mahi katoa, ka pono, ka tika, tihei mauri ora. So thank you and welcome. Ko Daniel Griffiths aho. Ke he kina whakatūtaki he mahi ana. I'm Daniel Griffiths. I work at MBIE, specifically your work in the evidence and insights area, and we're very pleased to welcome you today to this session where we're going to unpack our work on defining energy hardship. So we've published a discussion document, and the aim of this session really is to give you some of the story of how we've arrived at the definition that we have, to talk about the framework that guides our ultimate energy hardship definition, and really to support some Q&A shortly to get behind some of our thinking. So we're more than happy we would welcome your Q&A. So please, throughout the session, do throw up the Q&As. We'll save them up and address those at the end. And we'll stop the recording as we get into the Q&A. So this session will hopefully be available either on demand or available from the on the MBIE website later, and the Q&As will be considered private. So the energy hardship definition work has been a good journey that's taken us from the electricity pricing review. Something very important to me, having worked previously at Statistics New Zealand, and this is very much an overall statistical measure that we're really going for here, that we're putting this out there as one of those big key outcomes. I will stop before I get too far and telling you more about myself, and allow one of the other panelists who's going to be doing some presenting today to introduce themselves. So I'll hand quickly to Ella Priest-Forsyth to introduce yourself before I take this further.
Tēnā koutou katoa. No o te pōtea hau, engari ki te whanganui, ki te whanganui atara ahau e noho ana. Hei kina whakatūtu ki e mahi ana, ko Ella Priest-Forsyth ahau. Kia ora everybody, I'm Ella and I will be speaking shortly. Thanks, Daniel.
Kia ora, Ella. So the structure of the session, as we've said, and I might just get Ella to put up the next slide. We're going to be going through a slide pack, which we expect to take about 20 to 25 minutes, where we'll go through the background to this work, cover off some of the definitions themselves. One of the things that you'll be struck with initially is that we have a definition of energy well-being, and have created a framework around this well-being definition that really allows us to map to a measurement framework via a suite of indicators. So we'll take some time to go from what's the big outcome that we're seeking in terms of well-being, think about that conceptual framework that surrounds the definition, look at the indicators of that, and then arrive at measures specifically of energy hardship. We then have some work that we would like to unpack a little bit that we're proposing for the future that we're very keen to get your feedback on about the relative priorities for, which also sort of leads to us talking about some of the work we have done already with the actual numbers. So with the discussion document that we've published, we have put out a technical appendix that gives some of the figures and updates some very good work the Statistics New Zealand did in 2017, and has been very useful for motivating our current work. We'll finish off with a quick overview of how to submit. And this is very much about facilitating you making a submission, and finish up with the frequently asked questions. So I'll hand over at this point now to Ella to take us through all of the really great work that she's been leading. Ka kite. Well, kia ora.
Thanks, Daniel. So I thought we'd start with a little bit of background to this consultation. And basically this project was initiated because we know that energy hardship is affecting the lives of New Zealanders, and that some people in Aotearoa struggle to pay their power bills or put up with feeling cold to save money for other essentials. And this piece of work came out of the electricity price review, which was an independent review into the electricity sector, which found that energy hardship is a pressing issue in Aotearoa. However, one of the problems that we need to solve is that we have no agreed definition or measurement framework for it. So one of the electricity price review's recommendations was that the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment should develop a clear and generally accepted definition of energy hardship and determine what statistics should be gathered to monitor changes in energy hardship levels. And so in the government's response to the EPR, we were directed to do that. So our process so far has been to do some research. Energy hardship is a quite complex issue with a number of interrelated factors, and that makes defining it and measuring it not a simple task. So we've been looking at what others in research in New Zealand as well as overseas, as well as official definition and measurement overseas, what other people have done, as well as collaborating with experts in New Zealand, engaging with representatives across the sector from iwi and Māori groups, non-governmental organisations, as well as researchers. We've also coordinated with a number of different policy areas, both within MBIE and across other agencies, to look at the work that they're doing that's relevant. And we've also completed some initial analysis, which I will talk about later. I want to start by framing this work as how we see energy hardship and energy well-being as being on a spectrum. I think Daniel mentioned just before that we've proposed a definition for energy well-being, framing the definition in a really strengths-based, positive, aspirational lens, but we do see energy hardship as being on the other end of the spectrum. So we have developed a number of proposals which we're seeking your feedback on, and I'm going to go through those at a relatively high level now. They are, as I mentioned before, a definition for energy well-being, which is a plain language definition describing the concept of what we think energy hardship to be. And this is supported by a conceptual framework which unpacks the different drivers that affect a household's experience of either energy well-being or energy hardship. We follow these by looking at how we may then measure energy hardship. And we are proposing to have a suite of measures, both primary and secondary. This is our proposed definition for energy well-being. So this is when individuals, households and whānau are able to obtain adequate energy services to support their well-being in their home or kāinga. And this definition is then unpacked in the boxes around the outside. I'll just note that able to obtain we see as encompassing both affordability of energy as well as accessibility of energy supply. Energy services encompasses services that support people's lives, such as heating, cooking, washing and lighting. While this work was motivated by the electricity price review, we're not focused just on electricity, we're really focused on people in their homes being able to use enough energy to support their well-being, which comes to the blue box over here, adequate energy services to support their well-being. This ties in with a number of different well-being frameworks. Finally, in their home or kāinga, we're focused on people using energy where they live or stay. So looking at domestic energy use and not commercial. And I'll be speaking later about how you can submit on these proposals. And we've asked a number of questions throughout our consultation survey focused on different areas of our proposals. And what we're really interested to know about the definition is, do you think that this is right for Aotearoa? Following the definition, we have also developed a framework for energy wellbeing. So as I mentioned, this unpacks all of the different factors that we see influencing a household's experience of energy wellbeing or energy hardship. We have the family inside the home in the center of our framework, and around the outside are a number of different factors which interact and can interrelate, which affect a household's experience of, or a household situation of energy wellbeing or energy hardship. And I won't unpack all of them now, but we have tried to capture all of the different things that can affect a household. And we note that some of these may be different for different households. We have, for instance, the dwelling characteristics, which links in with Statistics New Zealand's framework for housing quality. And we see dwelling quality as being a key driver of a household's ability to maintain a healthy interior in their home. And this can interact with a number of different factors around the framework. We then looked at how we may measure, or how we might see the key indicators of energy wellbeing. And this links back to the definition and is a key step in going from a definition of energy wellbeing to think about how we might measure energy hardship. So we've tried to capture what we think are the key indicators of a household being in energy wellbeing, and you can see in the column along the side, the theme relates to parts of the conceptual definition. These are access to reliable energy supply when needed, able to access and use technologies, able to afford energy bills without economizing on other expenses, being able to use energy services as required to stay comfortable without, again, foregoing other necessities, and being able to obtain encompasses a dwelling that can maintain a healthy temperature, access to necessary appliances that are safe, effective, and efficient, and then well-being being supported in the home or kāinga, encompassing a dry and well-ventilated home and a healthy indoor temperature. And again, we've asked some questions in our consultation survey, mainly about whether you think these indicators are comprehensive. So we then move to looking at how we measure energy hardship. And there are a number of different ways that this has been done in other spaces. Some of those measures have been objective. So objective measures tend to focus on looking at how much a household is spending on energy compared to their income. There's a catch here where if we look at just how much a household is spending on energy, we don't necessarily see those households who may not be spending enough on energy, but actually rationing their energy use at the expense of their well-being. So this kind of measure, looking at just what households spend, can lead to false positives and negatives. And we're really interested in investigating measuring required energy spend rather than just actual energy spend. And these measures usually have a threshold. So a commonly referenced measure is whether a household is spending 10% of or more of their income on energy. And so they're considering what 10% means as a threshold is important when we set measures of energy hardship. The other type of measure that we've come across are subjective measures. So that's looking at the recorded experience of a household, for instance, their response to the question whether they are unable to adequately heat their home. And with subjective measures, we just need to be aware that people have different experiences and expectations. During our research and initial engagement and development of these proposals, we came across criticism of sort of binary measures in general, as well as just using one measure, as energy hardship is a continuum, and looking at using just one measure doesn't capture the depth of energy hardship that might be being experienced across the country. So our proposals for measuring energy hardship is we've proposed a set of primary measures and a set of secondary measures. We've proposed 4 primary measures of energy hardship. All of them are taken from a Stats New Zealand survey, and we've proposed 2 objective and 2 subjective. The 2 objective measures look at how much a household is spending compared to their income and considering their housing costs. One of them looks at how households are doing compared to the median in a specific time, and the other one looks at how households are doing compared to other households currently. The other 2 primary measures, P3 and P4, are subjective measures. So the third being how a household responds to a question about whether they put up with feeling cold to keep costs down a lot. And then the 4th, whether they find dampness and or mold to be a major problem in their house. We've also proposed a selection of potential secondary measures of energy hardship. So we have 26 here that we've proposed from a range of different official data sources. And we're really interested to hear your thoughts on which ones you think are most important to measure and which you think should be secondary, or if you think that some should be primary.